How are you all doing? Let's just do a quick little check-in. There's a few of us here. So how are you feeling? Kind of how are you coming to this moment? Maybe in one word, just what's your kind of mood right now? You can put it in the chat. It looks like some of you can hear me. And if you put, by the way, oh, there we go. If you click on all panelists, I believe, that'll go just to me so that I can hear you or I can read your chat message. And then if you put panelists and all attendees or everyone, then others will be able to kind of get your mood as well. So hopeful, that's good. Strangely optimistic, I love it. That's a good space to be. I like strangely optimistic. Well, I'm kind of feeling similarly in that space of feeling a bit, I think I've gone through all the cycles of feeling pretty overwhelmed. Yes, taking it day by day, feeling a little stressed and uncertain, and then kind of coming back around to feeling a little bit more hopeful. I think wherever you are, anxious, yes, full on anxiety attack. My husband's a psychiatrist, and so you always know it's good when your husband says to you, your psychiatrist husband says to you, do you think you should, maybe consider taking something? Right? It's like, do I appear anxious? I'm fine. So yeah, anxious, I'm with you there. I totally get it. So I just want to say wherever you are today, however you're coming to this moment is fine. I know that there's a lot of, we're communicating online right now, there's a lot of pressure to kind of conform what you're feeling and experiencing in this moment to what other people are feeling and experiencing in this moment. And it's okay just to be kind of in your own space. You're your own person, you have your own set of needs. And so wherever you are is great. Well, I'm going to dive in today. We might have some more people that join us as we go. I'm going to try to, hopefully I can make the technology work to record this for some people that emailed me and said they really wanted to be a part of the conversation but couldn't join at this time, whether they're educating kids online or they are in work meetings. They wanted to be part of it but couldn't. So we'll try to share this with them. I hope that this can be a bit of a conversation. I know we're not able to do it kind of audibly, but through the chat, if you guys can connect with one another and feel free to send things along. Looks like somebody just dropped in sort of a resource there. Feel free to do that so that we can just make this a little bit more dynamic and interactive as we go. I'm just going to share a few things with you from my perspective and what I've been learning with clients and from some of my work. And so some of it may be helpful to you. Hopefully it'll just be an encouragement to you, but I don't have any magic answer or anything like that. So I kind of wanted to start off our time today, and I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. So forgive me as I'm kind of looking back and forth because I want to look at my notes, but also be attentive to what you're saying. I think that one of the things that's really hard about this moment is that it's brought to surface a lot of the vulnerability that many of us have already been living with or we're feeling. I had a good friend that's a therapist that mentioned these times can be really challenging because when we're experiencing an external kind of trauma or traumatic situation, it can trigger us in spaces where we've already felt trauma or uncertainty. So some of us are feeling particularly overwhelmed in this moment. But I think everyone is feeling a bit of just a sense of like the veil has fallen off, right? We're being forced to confront our present reality. We're coming to terms with the fact that our health maybe is at risk. We're coming to terms with our relationships can be distanced. We're feeling a sense of isolation. Many of us are questioning our work or we've lost our jobs. We're wondering if the work that we're doing is even essential. It's hard that label is even being placed on like essential work. when it feels like, man, the things that I thought I was doing were so essential. And that can be hard. Even in our spiritual communities, we're not able to meet and connect the way that we typically do. And so that's a hardship. And we're realizing those moments where before we're kind of wanting to maybe forget getting out of bed to go to church. Do I have to go this Sunday? Now we're longing for that, and we can't be in relationship with people the way that we wished. So I think a lot of us are just experiencing a real transition and shift, right? To put it lightly. And I don't mean to say that without compassion, because I think most of us are experiencing some very real grief in this moment. And grief is, the Grief Recovery Handbook actually says that grief is the response, the normal response that we have to any sort of change, even if it's a good thing. Of course, when it's a bad thing, but grief is really just how we deal with loss, with something being not what we imagined it to be. And I appreciate that language, because I think when I describe this moment as being a moment of grief, I feel like it's given me permission to mourn and to actually have moments where I feel a little sad about it. And that can be, in some ways, encouraging. I know that some of you are having a really difficult time. I was coaching a client earlier today, which was really wonderful, and she was hopeful. We were talking through particular job changes that she was hoping for. Her job right now is secure, and so she's just in the place of dreaming. She's enjoying the time off and enjoying being with family. And immediately after that, I got on Instagram and I saw a post from a friend that was asking for prayer for a friend that was in the ICU and was in a moment of real despair. And so I think all of us are just in very different places. And so I want to be careful not to trivialize where we are. And I also want to just say very humbly, I don't have an answer for that, right? I don't have an answer to solve kind of this big moment. I don't know if you all have lived through a pandemic before, but I have not. So I'm kind of taking it day by day, just like I think it was Lisa that said that she was, or Janelle mentioned that she was. I know some of you maybe have dear friends and family who are in the medical field as well. I do. I have some family members that are nurses and doctors. Like I said, my husband's a psychiatrist, so I watch him coming out of his video sessions with clients and just in kind of like he's coming out of a war zone, having to really hold people into a space of stability and calm. And it's hard. We're in a crisis. But beyond that, I think that people are typically just struggling with issues. I have clients that outside of what's been happening in the larger world are just dealing with the everyday disappointments. Their jobs have not panned out the way that they thought. They are dealing with relationships that weren't working the way that they'd hoped for. They're feeling just an emptiness and uncertainty about their future. And so what do we do when our plans don't work out? What do we do when our dreams shatter? What's the answer? So I don't have a perfect answer for you, but I did want to walk through with you some of what I've gained from working with clients. And I think the good news is that I will tell you what I tell all of them, is that I think that you have everything that you need for this moment. And that sometimes we're looking outside of ourselves for some big answer. And a lot of people are promising us a lot of big answers right now. But I think that you actually have within you what you need to manage uncertainty and to manage the mystery of the moment. So before I get into the approach that I think is most helpful for us to take as we navigate uncertainty, I wanted to talk to you about some of the natural responses that I think we're having that are less helpful. Because you might find yourself in one of those categories, and sometimes I think it's easier to know where to go by knowing where we don't want to go. So let's first just talk a little bit about how our brains and our bodies naturally respond to anything that's uncertain or something that's novel and unanticipated. On rare occasions, we might experience surprise, right? When we interpret it as being a really good experience, this new thing, we might have surprise, we might have excitement, we might look forward to it with some sort of joy, right? Those are the rare occasions. Right now, we're talking about when plans or life doesn't go as we planned, and so it's something new, and our interpretation of that is negative. And so when it's negative, our bodies actually go into like an acute stress response, right? And so, kind of in layman's terms, what, right, we talk about this like fight or flight. And I would add to that kind of fight, flight, or freeze, where we actually have a physiological response to the moment. And our bodies go into a bit of a panic. And we see that through our adrenal glands. They start pumping out adrenaline. We start experiencing like our hearts racing. Our brains get foggy. It's difficult for us to make decisions. We feel overwhelmed. Our muscles get tight. And our kind of thoughts can be racing, right? And during those times when we're having that response, we want to do one of a few things. So I think our tendency is to want to do, as I said, the kind of that like fight, flight, or freeze. So let's talk about flight, or another way to say it would be fleeing. And that's when we just want to actually escape or kind of deny what our present reality is. And a lot of people we see are doing that right now. They're kind of denying or trying to move into escapism. And I think a healthy amount of denial can be okay when we're dealing with real traumas and really heavy things. But there can be a level of denial that's unhelpful to us. And so that's when we get into the space of just like full on Netflix binging, right? That's one of the ways it looks, although I am loving kind of catching up on some Netflix shows. But in a dangerous space, we can just kind of mentally check out. We're overeating, we're getting caught up in just like relational drama. We're indulging in some of our kind of vices to just escape and kind of get away from the perceived threat or danger that we see before us. Maybe we're just trying to pretend like that life hasn't turned upside down. And so some people are trying to just kind of operate as usual, and not in a healthy sense, but really as a denial of what's going on. And so that's kind of that flee or that flight response. And then some others of us, we just kind of freeze. So we check out and we cease existing. We just want to numb ourselves. And I think that numbing activities, kind of like the idea of Netflix, can also fit into this space. This is not meant to be a bash on Netflix. I love it. Also Amazon Prime. I'm watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel right now. But what I talk about when I'm meaning this idea of numbing is really the idea of sinking into like a depression, right? Where we just kind of are cutting off life and we are no longer feeling, and we're retreating from the moment. We allow despair, we allow sadness to consume us. And of course, this can happen on a big level when we're dealing with things like a pandemic. But this can also happen when you're just feeling like, the job that I'd wanted for myself, I got denied that promotion for the third time. I didn't get the raise. I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet, and I want to check out. We can do it then too. And this might also look like on the very extreme side of things, kind of that space of suicidal ideation. Like I really just like want to not be a part of what's happening. If you're feeling that, please seek help, call someone, reach out to a therapist, get support, the support that you need in that moment. And then our last response might be to fight. And so this is actually what I see a lot of that's happening online. And I think it makes sense because we live in a real like hustle culture right now where we're very girl boss. We're very like, I'm going to make things happen. And so we're in a sense trying to resist the danger that we're seeing, resisting what's happening by aggressively just kind of trying to throw a bunch of things at it. Right? So we hustle harder. We're going to generate more. We're going to do a lot of undirected activity. And I'm just going to like do things so I can try to actually like beat down this threat that's coming at me. Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe now's the time to write my book. Maybe I'll start the business. Maybe I'll take the class. And if we were to kind of just like step back and watch you, you're kind of just running around in circles, right? There's no kind of plan, or it's non-directed activity. And that's kind of that fight response. I would argue that none of those things are really helpful. And the reason why is because they don't lead us anywhere productive. They don't take us anywhere. They actually just keep us stalled and overwhelmed, and they end up burning us out because we can't sustain any of those responses for any extended amount of time. We need relief from it. So are you guys tracking with me? Give me a heads up in the chat if what I'm saying is making sense to you. How are we doing? You guys are with me. Love it. Okay. You guys are great at responding. Okay, perfect. So Now I want to kind of shift gears a little bit to say, what does work? Now, of course, I don't have a magic bullet answer of like, this is the path, but there are a few things that I've learned from kind of a high level process of how to approach uncertainty and what to do next by looking at just like a process or overall kind of system of thought or way of being that could be a little bit helpful for you. Um, and so, how do we start that? I think the first critical step is that we pause, right? Now, this is kind of an easy one. We're all being forced to pause right now. We're forced to slow down. We're self-isolating. We're retreating from kind of the generative life that was out there. And so we're sitting back and we're taking a time out and slowing down. And I think it's really critical that we do this because I'm going to get to why in just a moment, but we need a place where we can cut out noise, cut out distraction, and cut out the chaos around us so that we can focus on what matters, even if it's just for 5 minutes. When we help clients do their life plan and actually discover what their big life purpose is, we ask them to spend 2 days with us outside of their life. And some people balk at that. They're like, I want to know what my life purpose is, but I don't have 2 days to devote to it. And the reason we need that is because you need the quiet. You need to get away from the noise and the hum of the life you've been living to actually get some of the perspective that we need in order to start answering or devising or discovering the plan that you're meant to live out. So we need that quiet. It's important to pause, to rest, and to actually suspend activity. And you want to do this, you want to log off, you want to get quiet, kind of create a retreat-like experience for yourself where you disengage intentionally, not from a numbing perspective or avoidance, but you're intentionally disengaging to create quiet in your life. Now, some people have stopped doing their regular routine, and so they think that they're pausing. And really, it's not pausing. They're just not doing their day job, right? But they're generating and creating a lot of activity in other ways. And some people in this time of like not working are more active than they've ever been. I have talked to so many people that are like, I have 5 Zoom happy hours that I'm trying to get to, and I can't connect with this person and that person, and I got to be at work, and there's this meeting to be a part of, and which online class should I take? That's not rest, right? That's still that fight response of a lot of activity. So you want to slow down and get quiet. And we're doing that because we also want to help our body to move away from that acute stress response. We're actually trying to create that kind of slowness to calm down, to recenter, to give ourselves the space to actually be calm. And so a really great way to do this, I should say it's simple. It's not necessarily easy. I love the phrase of reclaiming the morning just by waking up like 30 minutes earlier. Set your alarm a little bit earlier just before the world starts to wake up. Don't turn on your phone. Don't look at the news. And just spend some time sitting in silence. And you can meditate, you can do deep breathing, you can simply just stare into space, whatever it may be. It's a great time, of course, if you're from a spiritual perspective, do your quiet time or whatever it may be, but just kind of turn off from the world, but be alive and be present to the quiet for like 20 to 30 minutes. If you can get in nature, that's even better. But I want you to create a space of a true pause. If you can't do it first thing in the morning, find some times during the day where you just kind of log out of everything and you just lay back on your couch and just find quiet. 10 minutes. Why do we do this? Well, we want to do that because during that pause, I want you to allow your spirit to actually speak without being drowned out by the noise of the world. So I think I used to have a lot of therapy clients when I would see clients in counseling one-on-one, and they would talk about how silence is really terrifying for them. Some of them would have a hard time going to sleep, and so they'd always have to listen to podcasts and things like that just to keep their mind going until they would just get so tired they'd fall asleep. And they were really, ultimately what we would explore is that they were afraid of what the quiet might bring. Because in the silence, our spirit does start to speak to us. It starts to tell us stuff that we're drowning out all the time. It can actually start telling you the truth. And for some of us, that's a little terrifying. But I think there's value to doing that. We'll talk about in a second why that knowledge is helpful. So the first thing I want you to do is pause and then use that pause to focus on the next part, which I say is to pay attention to your needs. So this is really about true self-care. I want you to listen to your body, listen to what your spirit is saying, and just ask yourself, like, what do I need in this moment? That's it. What does my body need? Do I need to like stop with the caffeine in the morning? Do I need to breathe a little bit more? Do I need to eat healthier today? Do I need to hydrate? What is it? What are my real needs? Do I need more sleep? Um, what's going on with you? And then in more of a spiritual sense too, like what does my spirit need? What am I feeling? Am I feeling lonely? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling stressed or anxious? Just give yourself the space to actually hear from yourself in terms of what your real needs are. It's also a great time to get a clue into what your replenishment and your generative activity needs to be. We don't really know until we're quiet. Some of you actually on here are my past life plan clients. So hello to those of you who have done this with me. You'll remember that this is where we want to focus on our replenishment cycle, right? We want to actually go back to the activities that we know inspire us, fuel us, and give us energy. Okay. Another way to kind of consider or engage with paying attention to your needs in the quiet is to go through Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I really love that as just a space to have more of like a staggered approach to how to care for myself well. And so the first, kind of the bottom level of that hierarchy of needs is really paying attention to what your physiological needs are. So that's stuff like your health. It's looking at shelter, clothing, food, water, all of that. Like what's your stability, right? And then you can move on to some of the larger things like your safety needs. So am I okay? Like what can I do to address my financial security in this moment? Am I financially secure? What am I dealing with in terms of like relational safety? So kind of pay attention to those safety needs. And you don't have to fix all of them in the moment, but just ask yourself, like, how are you doing there? And what is needed in those spaces? Because that's going to give you a clue of what do I need to prioritize? I have to address these things first. After safety, you kind of bump up a little bit to social needs. So where do I belong? How can I experience a greater sense of belonging and connectedness in this moment? So you can get to that space. And then until those needs are met and acknowledged, at the very least, I want you to avoid spending too much energy in the generative and productive space. So much of what I see online, like I said, is kind of born out of this hustle harder culture. And it's like I roll my eyes at every post that's like, this could be the time when you write your big book, right? Or this could be the moment where you launch your business or make your great contribution to society. And maybe you will, But first, let's just focus on lunch. Did you eat lunch today, right? Are you safe? Are you loved? Right? And then we can go back to some of those larger things that are the ego pursuits once our basic needs are cared for. So once our needs are addressed, I want you to be able to pause or use that pause to move past needs and move into the perspective space. So this is the fun part. This is where I live all day, right? Is helping people get perspective. This is where we take stock of who, what, and where we are. And I like to say this is the fun part in life planning. Like I said, we spend 2 days helping people discover their life plan. And we actually spend about a day and a half of it in perspective. And the reason why we spend so much time just trying to get a lay of the land and capturing where we are is because it gives us all of the information that we need to be able to quickly execute later. The solutions, the path forward actually emerges for itself once we have an accurate understanding of where we are. So in the perspective phase, I want you to just kind of brutally confront the reality of your situation and to capture what's going on in your life. Now, I'm all conflict and no avoidance, so I tend to be about this, but it can be hard to face the truth of who we are. I want to encourage you to do that because when you do, you're actually able to reclaim your power over your circumstances because things aren't controlling you without your awareness or knowledge. You're actually very in tune with what's going on with you. One of my favorite quotes comes from Oprah. Let's see, I don't know the exact quote, but loosely she says that all stress is kind of caused by wanting this moment to be something other than what it is. And I love that because so much of the stress that we're feeling is wanting to reject what we see before us. And so we waste a lot of energy just trying to push against what's already happening And when we move into simply facing the reality of what's going on in our lives, we can actually start to channel that energy into a more helpful space of moving one foot after the other into kind of a more productive activity. So some ideas for how you can do this is really just to go through each life bucket and identify how you're doing. And some of those life buckets, thinking about how am I personally doing? How am I doing in my relationships? How's my career going? How's my spirituality functioning? How is my sense of connectedness to a spiritual community? How is that working? And what kind of contribution am I making to the larger world? What is happening in the world around me? And as you start to explore those things, like literally write them down, um, kind of notice the sense of calm that can come over you, because once you start to go, oh, that's really all that it is, and maybe it's a big thing, but that's what it is. And so now I know the beast that I'm fighting, I know the beast that I'm grappling with right now. And also in this time of perspective, you want to tune into, well, what's my core purpose? What is the larger kind of plan or vision for my life? And how far away am I in this moment from that bigger vision? So how does my current reality line up with the kind of core idea or reason for my existence? What's that distance like? That can be a tricky space. I know that some of you that are on here have a really clear sense of what your calling is, have a really clear sense of why you're here. And so doing that kind of assessment of where I am versus where I'd like to be is a little bit easier to navigate. Some of you have never thought of that before. If you haven't, I'm happy to share resources with you or whatever that might be useful for you to move forward. But I want you to think a little bit of like, what does it mean for me to thrive? How am I wired? What do I need? What do I want? What am I gifted at in my life? And how is the life that I'm currently living measuring up against those things? Like I said, if you want resources for that, you can email me. It's not to upsell you or anything like that, but it would be helpful if you share with me what your specific experience is and maybe some of the questions that you're asking and grappling with, so that I can send resources that would be helpful for where you are in this moment. Some of you are just needing to understand more of who you are and what you're about. And so more of like the personality kind of assessments and things like that might be useful to you. Some of you are trying to understand more of your purpose. And so maybe some language and things to help you suss out, like, how do I start to think about purpose and calling? Those resources might be more useful for you. So I'm happy to send whatever that may be your way. And then the last thing is, once we've gotten perspective, we can go back into that planning space. So I find that most times we don't actually need a new plan. This is certainly true of the clients that I work with when we do life planning. A lot of the life plan work is about discovering what's already inside of you. It's not about cobbling together something new. So we don't actually need to like throw out everything we've been doing and come up with some whole new way of being. Part of what we're doing in these moments, once we get perspective, is just going, I need to actually reconnect to the deepest parts of who I am. I need to go back to the things that I've always known. And I need to actually just shed the things that I've picked up along the way. I think that's where a lot of us are in this moment, where things are really crazy and being kind of stripped away from us, is we're realizing what's essential. Like, what do I actually need? I've been spending a lot of my life living for things that maybe don't even matter. I've been maybe trying to build up or achieve things in my career that aren't worthwhile. Or I've been maybe angsty and spending a lot of time trying to navigate relational dynamics that I don't even need to know these people. Or when it really comes down to it, this isn't what's most meaningful in my life or what I'm about. And so we want to go back and actually use the planning phase to reconnect to the deepest parts of who we are. And on the flip side, I would say that we also want to pay attention to how our dreams or our hopes or expectations have shattered. What are the things that have fallen apart for us? Because those are great clues into where we were placing our hope all along. And we want to do the assessment to say, like, were those things actually worth hoping for? I think that sometimes the plans falling apart can be useful, because it actually helps us let go of a life that we weren't even meant to live anyway. We realized that we were maybe doing things that were driven more by our ego, or shaped by kind of the false idols that we were looking after, these things that were outside of us, that we were looking to define us or give us a sense of meaning. And those things were never able to actually fulfill those deepest longings of our heart. And so this is the time to actually let them go and to reconnect to a plan that really matters. Now, I can't say if that's true for you in your particular circumstances and the hurts that you're bringing to this moment, or the confusion that you may have in this moment. We're all in different places, but I would challenge you to assess, is the disappointment that I'm facing in this moment, is that actually an opportunity for me to unpack what I was placing my hope in, and to see that that wasn't something that was worthwhile? Is it something that I actually am able to count as a loss and go, no, that was worthwhile, and I actually just need to recommit and actually get rid of stuff that was distracting me from it? Or do I actually just realize that I don't even know what I'm about or what I was after? I was just kind of living, and kind of putting one foot after the other, but not really sure where I was going. And so I need to slow down and actually cobble a plan together and actually understand where I am. Obviously, in this larger cultural moment that we're in right now, so this is beyond just the typical life plan uncertainty that I'm often working with clients in. I think that we're in, what feels like a dumpster fire, right? Like, it's a moment where there's like a lot of hardship that's out there. And I don't know if there's some major redemptive aspect to it. I do hope that is the case. I do hope that we're all better after this moment. I do believe that, on a personal level, the heart of God is grieved at what's happening, right? That this is like not ideal. But outside of kind of that larger narrative, I think just in our individual disappointments, I think our shattered dreams is a great opportunity actually for us to grow and for us to move into that uncertainty and actually get to a place of deeper meaning and joy and stability on the other side. So I'm going to stop there. I wish that I had some magic bullet for you. I don't, but I do know that, I want to offer you just the same thing that I offer my clients, which is to say that you've got this, right? Just slow down, get perspective, trust that the mystery of the moment is okay. And as you wade through it, be sure to honor what your needs are along the way, and eventually we'll get to a space where there's a little bit more clarity and answer on the other side. And in the meantime, you'll be healthier as you go. I want to end there, but I want to leave some space for anybody that's listening, or just things that you maybe are wondering, entertaining, or questions that you're grappling with related to this, that maybe as a group we can kind of answer together. So I'll give you a minute, and if there's something you want to share, I'll look in the chat and see what maybe you'd want to share. Some of you are sending me messages personally, so let me look at that. Yeah. Someone asked about, or it looks like a couple of you have asked about the 5 buckets. Or actually one of my past life plan clients. So you mentioned that there are 5 buckets. Yes. So someone asked, what are the different areas of our lives that we can kind of step back and get perspective to ask how we're doing in those different areas and try to confront the reality of where we are. So those buckets are paying attention to kind of the bucket of self, just like your personal space, who you are. This is your health and well-being. And that can be mental, emotional, spiritual, physical health. The other space is in that kind of relational area. So looking at family, looking at friends, looking at the people that you're in deep connection with. Of course, in the career space, so we want to look at, what do you do? How do you make a living? But also kind of, what is the work of your hands? What are the things that you're putting out into the world? The next one is spirituality or spiritual community. And so looking at I like to think of spirituality as the space where do I remember that I'm not the center of the universe and that there's something larger than myself? And then the last one is in the space of community or global contribution, which is how do I engage with the world around me? So what does it mean for me to connect with my neighbors? What does it mean for me to connect with people in other countries? What does it mean for me to know that my actions and my way of being in the world intersects with others? Any other questions or thoughts? Awesome. And I'm going to put here, some of you have asked let's see if I can type this at the same time. I think I can. Some of you got to the link this way, but here is the link where you can go and actually send your email if you want me to send you a resource, or my email address is chanel@lifeplan.nyc. Hopefully that went to everybody. So you can just go and contact me there if you have some specific questions related to your personal experience. I know that what we're talking about is like huge, heavy issues. And everybody's way of engaging with this is very different based on where they are. And so I'd love to speak into and just kind of come alongside or mourn with you in your particular areas. So feel free to reach out to me personally. Like I said, it's not an opportunity for me to sell you anything more or something like that. But I do have some assessments or some books I might recommend. One that if you are into this idea of shattered dreams, I actually was looking at this book a little bit earlier today. It's one I've gone back to again and again and again. You can see how tattered it is. It's called Shattered Dreams. It's by Larry Crabb, and it's one of my favorite books about what to do with disappointment. And it talks about how our shattered dreams can actually be an unexpected pathway to joy. And it's probably one of the best books I've read. So that's one resource I'll offer to you today that I hope will be helpful to you. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go. Feel free to reach out to me. Thank you so much for participating and coming and spending your lunch hour with me, or if you're on the West Coast, your early morning. Adore you all. Hoping the best for you, cheering for you. Bye, guys.